Welcome back to another episode of the We Do Cool Shit podcast, which I think is episode number four. Okay, I've just taken over the intro from Bree and I knew that wasn't going to go smoothly. Boom, over to you.
No, you nailed it. Welcome back, guys. We are so excited to be here today. Now, this episode here is purely dedicated to one topic and one topic only. Because I find, Mitch, that a lot of what you've done, your history, your promoter career, there's a lot of light shined on the cool, amazing, incredible shows that we've done. For good reason,
Do you want a dark episode? Is that
I do want a dark episode. I want some drama, right? I want some really good stories that we can cut into social clips and get lots of interest on. So this is it.
I knew. That's the angle.
It's not the angle.
That's
it's actually,
the angle. It's
been a story that's been rumoured around audiology since I started, and I've never got the full thing, but I feel like it's almost way into the business when you get the full story from Mitch around this crazy Thailand adventure. That's when you've really been inducted in. So not only myself today, but also the audiology punters can come behind the scenes and hear about this crazy story.
All right.
I don't even know where to start with it, to be honest.
I don't know where to start. Firstly, it was Indonesia, so I was going to say that because I love Thailand and I still love Vietnam. I just don't like Indonesia.
Fair enough.
So I know it's the Indo story. I knew you were going to ask me at some point. The crazy thing about that story is I came back and I was silenced and didn't tell it for 6 or 7 years. But then I eventually just stopped caring, and in the last 3 years I've told it heaps. So some people might have heard it. It's such a wild story that often even I have to try. I'm like, it's like a Netflix worthy, and I often I'm like, I tell people that, and it's cool because I'll show you some. No one's ever seen some of the evidence of the story. I'll show you some today, but the full version of the story probably takes me 2 hours to tell. Yeah, because it's so in depth and there's so many. It was just crazy how the whole thing unfolded. But I'm sure I can give you a 15-minute.
Please. maybe 30 minutes. We'll see how we go. So basically, I have only really known your promoter career to be shows based in New Zealand. But for the preface of the story, this was a show you were going to do internationally, right?
It was.
Was this one of your first international shows?
First
Did you dabble
ever.
Overseas? No way.
It was the overseas show. It was, imagine, I mean, you know me now, but imagine 10 years ago, because it's 2016, so we're coming up to our 10th anniversary of nearly dying. So imagine an even more excited, not more excited, but an eager, young, naive version of me.
Holy.
That was out to conquer the world. And this is 2016, and it was my first crack. You know how I told you I've been completely broken, lost everything multiple times. So this was one of them, but it was everything I'd saved up and everything I'd worked towards was going into this show overseas, and it was such a cool opportunity, or it felt like such a cool opportunity, and it was audiology's big break into the international market.
Oh, hey, here we go.
Yeah. So I guess to start with, it's a lot of people don't know how that sort of collab came along, but it was a show where I was contacted by an Australian promoter who lived in Perth, and said, hey, do you want to work or collab on the show, sort of go 50-50 partners, and do this exciting show overseas, that she was like, I've got an incredible venue, I've got everything's almost ready to go, and she obviously saw value in the fact that audiology's sort of market share in New Zealand and being able to promote Kiwis to go over, and when I saw that it was Gili T and it was a beautiful island, you get sold on the dream of swim with the turtles, party on. It is a bit of a party island, and it was look, this is probably screaming Fire Festival vibes, but it was so exciting at the time. I remember being we're going to drop our first international show, and all my friends can come over, and it's not. It was supposed to be intimate, but with big artists, right? So it was Peking Duck and Nightmare and and Danny Bird and and I'd pulled favors, right? I'd pulled favors from all the artists that I knew or was friends with, and what's cooler than partying on an island for 4 or 5 days?
Crazy.
Intimate little island.
So good.
I think it was 650 capacity. It was supposed to be on the beach with boat parties around it. We are the original Fire Festival. That's the reality.
The dream.
We just, but I guess we're not getting we didn't get the same media attention because we didn't put people in tents and give them
Yeah.
small sandwiches. But
Okay, thank God.
yeah, yeah.
The ethics were still there, but there was obviously things along the way that didn't quite go right. So did you get right up until show day? Is that right? Until things really started to peel back?
Yeah. So let's take it back to, so I came on board like relatively late, like maybe 2 months before show day.
Wow.
And yeah, effectively we'd sold a bunch of the tickets and marketed it, and it was just a case of getting over there and actually meeting the wider team, so meeting the Indonesian team and just making sure that all the boxes were ticked. So let's say that started. I think I might have gone 6 weeks out. Was maybe the first trip that we took over there, and the first trip over was awesome. Like everyone was on board. You've got like it was so much more casual than a New Zealand round table meeting,
Yeah.
but it still had a lot of the same. It was effectively still the same sort of stakeholders. You know what I mean? So you still got your like environment people. You still got licensing. You've still got venue. You've still got police. So it's, I mean, events around the world are always going to have a similar sort of structure. And it gave me, and then there was one person who was more of like the middleman who handled the relationship and almost like a translator, but you know, and that was the person that we were dealing with really closely, and it gave me a lot of I guess having that meeting and you know having sort of 8 to 10 people around a table gave me the confidence that like, whoa, this is the real deal, and it's good to go.
Yeah.
So that's so I'm starting at the really good point where like things really looked like it was just all guns blazing. There was no issues at this point. So I think there we fast forward to maybe 4 weeks out, and we have our secondary meeting, and this is where things start to pop up that weren't sort of discussed, you know, like so we had already talked about how to do the artist visas, and we had already talked about the environmental impacts of the beach and the venue and the things that we would do. We were going to contribute some money to help with their like recycling and waste management and stuff. So there's always like a give back vibe there, and those weren't so much like they weren't issues. They were just, you know, things that we'd all agreed on. But then it would like there'd start to be a little bit more like hesitation or like certain things that, you know, certain boxes we had to tick that were like, oh, okay, like I didn't, you know, just started to feel a little bit off, and people they're starting to request more from us, and our friend, not our friend, but our
Translator?
I don't even know what to call him. It's translator's just even too kind, but
oh no!
But no, he's you know, so he's like things are just getting a little bit more tense or a little bit more complicated, I guess, than we had planned. So that was like my first ever. So say we're a few weeks out. That was my first ever real inkling of like, oh, maybe this will be a little bit more difficult than we intended, because it was so smooth before then. Everything's so easy. Promote the show, sell the tickets, get the artist.
Boom.
Holy, we're getting gilly tea. And so things started getting like really hectic in terms of some of the requests. And this happened. So I think we arrived between 5 or 6 days before the event. And this is where we learnt, upon lots of chats, you know, leading up to this, but when we got there, we sit around the table, it's like, you know, it's 5 days out, and they're like, all right, so do you have your crowded permit? And this, so out of nowhere, after all of this organizing and all of this conversation and multiple meetings with everyone, what's that?
Not the fly.
It's out to get me.
It's
an Indonesian spy fly.
It's an Indonesian spy.
Oh shit! See, that's why I get nervous telling the story. Get away! Oh my god. Yeah. So now we're so this is the first time that the request for a crowded permit had been brought up, and we're just a few days out from the event, and so we're all like, all right, what's a crowded permit? And it was basically this permit was, in my eyes, like created to enforce some form of like bribery or whatnot, right? Because it's creating a hurdle that like your show's not going to go ahead unless you've got this permit. And I remember saying like, well, what's a crowded permit? And it was in Indonesian law, for a show over 500 people, it requires a crowded permit to occupy the grounds. And our show was about 650 or 700 people. I was like, that's interesting. But so I just said, all right, what do we need to do for this permit? And it was the craziest expectation. It was that we had to go to the head of multiple police stations and basically get it signed off. Now, what ends up happening in corrupt countries is that everybody wants an underhand little payment, right? So the deeper you go,
Yes.
the more money. And I'm naive back then because first, how you chop the head off the snake with this sort of thing is you go straight to the top and you pay them, right? They can filter it down if they want to. But at this point, I have no idea what's going on. I'm just paying the people as they request it.
Oh my God.
So you go, so there's trouble. We're all starting to understand that there's an issue here. I befriended an Australian guy, absolute legend, and he's like, I'll help you with this, because he could see that we were struggling, and he was going to help me get these forms signed, and basically just assist with the process.
So you needed an actual physical signature.
You need physical signature on this permit from all of the, I think it was five police stations, and basically, like, in the 3 or 4 days, it was impossible. It was almost like too difficult to achieve that.
Yeah.
But with his help and with thousands and thousands of dollars just being withdrawn and bribing people, we actually got it done.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Like, one of them had to be signed off from, there's like police stations in other cities, and we're on an island, so it was a bit of a miracle. But this guy lived there, and he knew Indonesia well, and he could sort of see what was happening. Like, he knew that we were getting taken advantage of, and I think he wanted to see he owned a hostel, so I think he wanted to see the festival go ahead.
Of course, yeah.
But at this point, everyone's flying into the event. So I've got my artists there, I've got my friends there, and word's sort of getting around, because the first boat party was supposed to happen like the day or two before.
Yeah.
And word starts getting around that, like, okay, there's some issues, because it's a small island and it's pretty hard to keep that secret.
Of course.
And so there's already this sort of like negative, weird energy and goss going around and rumors floating around. But anyway, we like pull off the miracle with the crowded permit, and we come back the day, it's like the day before the event, and or before the boat party, and they're like, so big round table again. All right, so have you got the crowded permit? And we're like, yeah, actually we do. And so the head cop from the main police station sitting at the table, and that was the last signature that we had got for the permit. So it's kind of weird, like, have you got the crowded permit? It's like, yeah, like,
we paid you.
You signed it off. And I think he might have been like 5,000 or 10,000 US or something.
Oh my goodness.
To get that final signature. And
as bribery.
Just keep in mind through all of this is why the story's too long, but like, keep in mind, like, there's been a lot of bribes already, and I've already put all my money into this festival, so I don't, like, my only option is to continue.
Yes.
The only option is to keep going.
Yeah.
So if it's going to cost $5,000 or $10,000 here to save a, multi-$100,000 festival, or it's kind of like it felt like the only option was to push forward.
100%, yeah, for sure.
Was to push forward. So yeah, so we're at the table, and they go, "Do you have the crowded permit?" And so the person I was with goes, "Yeah, like, it was." Yeah, we got it all done, and it was signed off yesterday. It was the final signature that we needed. And he's at the table, and he goes, "I don't know what you're talking about."
No, not the head cop.
Yeah. So that was the moment that I realized that corruption runs so high up in Indonesia, and it's so deep, because before that I'd felt like it was just ground level getting swindled here and there.
Yeah.
That was the first time that I realized, like, we're in the trenches. Like, this is some real shit. And also starting to realize that, like, I can get myself in a lot of trouble here, because like, on one hand I'm thinking that, because it's sort of like devil angel on each shoulder, and it's like, on one hand I can get myself in a lot of trouble, on the other hand I've put everything into this and it just has to happen. So we go away from that, and the first thing they do is police just line up and they block our boat party. So the boat party's cancelled, right? So this is the first thing that happens, and now it becomes 100% my priority for the next day is to make sure that the main festival goes ahead. So I'm rolling around. Words already, like I said, words already spread. Everyone's like, who the hell's this like Kiwi guy rolling around making all this shit happen? And I'm going around chatting to everyone, trying to find loopholes as you do. And someone says you need to go chat to the head of the super club, because what you could do is move the event into the super club, and then you don't need a crowded permit because the super club held 1,000 people.
Right.
Yeah, and so that ended up being a guy. So I have the meeting at the super club, having a drink, chatting to him, telling him what I've been through.
Yeah.
And somehow in this conversation, he's like, all right, like screw them and what they've done to you. Like he was really on my side, and he's like, this show's going to go ahead, and there's nothing they can do about it. And he gave me like a lot of confidence, and you know, and it was because obviously he wanted to make the money from the club as well. And then we just had general conversation, and he goes, Mitch, like outside of owning this club, I actually fly F1 fighter jets, and I'm in the military. And I was like, what? That is mind blowing. And he just starts showing me videos. So it's just photos of him in uniform, and then like videos of him in F1 fighter jets. And I was like, holy hell, this guy's like the real deal.
Big dog.
And so story gets around a little bit, you know, a little bit more. And basically they've decided that they're not going to let the show go ahead, and that they're going to block him from his, they're not going to let his super club run the show. Because at this point, like, I guess it's me versus them, or it's like we've both got a point to prove.
Yeah.
They knew that I was trying to find loopholes and stuff,
Yeah.
and they're trying to find ways to shut this down. And so they just told him, they're like, look, like the police will line up, and the super club won't open. So then he messages me frustrated. We have another meeting, and he goes, look, Mitch, if you can give me like, if you can give me about $10,000 US, I can bring the military in, and we can defend the island against the police, because basically, like, he's like, the hierarchy here is that it's military sits above the police. So
What?
So and again, like, this is a shortened version of it, but I was like, okay, $10,000, which is very hard to get out, and it's a lot of money in Indonesia. But myself and my mate and anyone we could get involved are withdrawing money from ATMs, right, to make this happen. To me, it's like the final, like, this is it, we're in. So we withdraw all this money from the ATMs, and I go to him and say, look, like this is it. This is like everything we have. This includes like borrowing money and stuff, because I don't even think I had 10 grand at the time. And basically left him with it overnight, and wake up in the morning and the island, all on the beach, is surrounded with military holding like M16 assault rifles, blocking the police from coming in. And I was like, holy shit,
it worked.
He's actually stuck to his word. Like, couldn't believe, because it's also very hard to tell who's on your side.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
And I've already been screwed so many times. But so I wake up, and that's the first thing I see. And things are already pretty hectic. Like, people have come to the hotel like, trying to find me and talk to me, and like, you know, government officials and whatnot. But now it's really escalated, because now I've just shut the police down.
And there's people with full weapons standing on the island. Wow.
And so at this point, I'm cruising around. It's like 35 degrees, and I've got a hoodie on, like covering my head, going, and there's no cars on Gili T. It's just like you're on the back of horse carts. So just, imagine me like not wanting to show my face, because I don't know who to trust anymore. Like, it's already so intense. I can't even explain.
Is this the day of the festival?
The energy, yeah. This is the morning of the festival.
The morning of, oh my goodness.
The morning of the festival, eh? And so obviously I wake up. I don't realize that too much is wrong, which again is pretty naive when you've just paid the military to come to an island. And anyway, I get a message which
oh, here we go. He's got receipts.
I don't think anyone's ever seen this before.
He's got receipts.
So this is, how's that?
Morning of the show.
So this is a message from the person that was helping me out, and it says, basically like the Navy had come, and so that's a photo of that's the Navy boat, and it says, better you leave from Gili T, take care, that's all I can give you as a suggestion. If you don't mind, change your mobile number, because they're going to contact you. And I was like, who? Like, and I sort of go, I was like, we need the money back. I don't even know why I'm thinking about the money at
Who
this
is
point.
this person? Is this the person with the super club
This
or the
is
Aussie
this
dude
is the
helping
super
you?
club,
The super club guy.
but his assistant. Yeah, his name's.
Holy.
I'm not going to put names in it, but you can see. So he's like, because there was two of them, so he's the assistant going like. But the reason he was messaging me was because they had come and arrested the guy that owned the super club.
No way.
So they had already got him, and now they're looking for me. And then this is his assistant going, you need to leave and change your mobile number. Now, as a young person that had, like, that was all my money, I naturally go, we need the money back, which is like, should have been my last focus.
Is that your first message?
And then this is us trying to get the, get the cash back. Like, it was just, he tried to tell me, he's like, I've given it to your mate. And we never ever got the money. But anyway, I should have just, the message really was like, get off the
You're
island,
in trouble.
because
Yeah.
it wasn't about the money anymore. This is
No.
about the principle.
Yeah.
And yeah, so this is about the principle at this point. And I've really pissed them off. Like, okay, because, so here's the crazy thing. In Bali or Indonesia, it does go police and it does go military, but they never told me that the Navy's above the military. So the Navy comes in, right, takes over.
No way.
And I just boosted, all I had was my passport, and I boosted to the back of the island and I escaped on a jet boat.
Who was the jet boat owner?
There's heaps of jet boats there. Just there's like jet boats available for, anyone can hop on them.
No way.
But yeah, we hop on, boost off, and then Lombok is the big island next door. And so at this point, it's like, you don't even care about the festival. You start like just caring about like your life. All my, friends and stuff are back there, like worried because I've been gone for like hours, whatever. And yeah, and then it just becomes more of like a case of like, am I ever going to see them again? Because you know that in corrupt countries like that, they can twist that story and they can basically, I can go to prison. Like I wasn't that scared of dying at that point.
Oh my goodness.
But I was definitely thinking, the corruption's, they're going to paint me out as the bad guy.
Exactly.
When all I've done is just get bribed and, all I've done is bribe people and
your
endure
reputation will be
intense-
gone for
yeah,
good.
yeah, just crazy levels of corruption. And so jet boat pulls up to Lombok, and there's just 4 guys all dressed in black, just ready to handcuff me.
Stop it.
Yeah, so they caught me on the other side.
No, they did not.
yeah.
So you did get arrested.
Yeah. Okay. So they handcuff me, throw us in this van, and at this was the point where I thought I was going to die, because they weren't like in cop uniforms or anything. So you start to wonder like, who have they even paid? And Lombok, you're just going through jungle. So you're just with like, you're handcuffed, 4 guys dressed in black, and you're just driving through a jungle.
Yeah,
so you're like, I'm waiting for like them to just take a left turn, and it'll just be like, like life's not that, they don't value life the same way that I did at that point. But yeah, it's anyway, it was quite a long drive, and we ended up pulling into this like old concrete building, which again, like, still didn't know what it was at the time, and it ended up being some sort of like government, like embassy or something. Nothing's in English and stuff, so it was like very confusing, and basically I say we because at this point I'm still with the Australian promoter, so we're still. I was the one in the shit because I was doing all of the deals, but I mean, she was along for the ride. So
just the 2 of you.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And like didn't have my suitcases, you know what I mean? So it was just wild. And then we get detained in this room, handed these forms, and just told like we need to sign these forms. This is after hours, and so we're still like, what the hell's going on? And basically, they had tried to get us. All the writing was in Indonesian. They tried to get us to sign these forms, and I was just, thank God, like I was at least smart enough to just keep saying no.
Yeah.
I must have been the most annoying person they've ever dealt with. It was just, I was like no, get it translated, like get me a lawyer, like trying to communicate. Just kept going until eventually they got it translated, and we realized that they were trying to get us to admit to the fault, and then I would have been screwed forever. Wow. So we just kept putting up a fuss, got it translated, said we're not signing it. And yeah, again, like cut a long story short, so I'm handcuffed to a police officer rolls in, thank God, one in uniform, handcuffed to him, taken straight to the airport, and he's basically like, you're on the next flight. And this is at night, and I was like, oh, there's not a flight till the morning or whatever. I'm trying to like plead my case. He goes, oh, you're on the next flight, and I ended up in Japan.
Japan.
Yeah.
Of all places, they literally just put you on the next flight.
Yeah, I just wanted to like get out of there, so
Yeah.
I had like very limited options, and
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, okay. Like forcing me to get a flight. And I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I'll go to Japan, because he was just going to wait there with me until I got off,
Oh
he had to
my
walk me on and
goodness.
stuff.
Yeah. That is insane. So you had nothing with you apart from your passport, the clothes on your back, and were you still with the other promoter at this point?
Yeah, except I actually can't remember, but she would have had to take a flight somewhere else, or maybe there was a flight to Perth like that. I can't remember how that unfolded, but I do remember just being grateful to like be out of there and be alive, and just sort of I think just checked myself into a hotel with phone and passport or whatever, and ended up I was trying to pull myself out of it and like snowboard or like, I don't know, it was pretty gnarly. I think I was there for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, wow.
It was full on. So the follow up from that is, so now let's just say I get back to New Zealand, and I've just been through the wildest story of my life. And I just reached out to like the few journalists that I know, and I was like, we've got to get the story on, like this is crazy. Like they've completely screwed me. Like we've got to get the story on TV.
So corrupt.
Corruption, blah, blah. And they were, effectively all of them had the same view, which was like, hey, like really sorry that you've been through that, but like that's not a story that, trust me, that you want to cover, because like they'll find a way to send someone out here and because then I'm making them look bad, and then I'm ruining their tourism.
Yes.
And I remember just being like, just felt sort of silenced,
Yeah,
and
of course.
so I didn't tell the story for ages. It was only like 3 years ago where I was like, oh, may as well tell the story now. Like,
That is so mind-blowing.
good luck, bring it on.
So ever since then, you've never gone international with audiology. Was that the one shot that
Apart
you did?
from ADE.
Hey,
yeah.
doing yourself there.
But get this, a little follow-up to that story is years later, because I was blacklisted and deported, right?
Yeah.
So years later, firstly, I thought maybe you're blacklisted for 5 years. I don't know, right? So 5 years later, one of my good friends is getting married there. I'd spoken to some contacts that were high up that own venues, and I said, can you get my name wiped off the the Bali list? And long story short, they thought they had. And so I go over there for my mate's wedding, and so I fly in. This is like, trust me, why the hell would you even try this after? But it felt like enough time had passed.
Yeah.
I was almost willing to forgive that place. Fly in, she swipes, and I had a new passport, everything, swipes my passport, and her face just goes white. And I was like, oh, what's wrong? She's like, you're going to have to come to this other room. And I was like,
No.
I was like,
They've got
"Please,
you."
Lord." I was like, no, now they're going to keep me forever. And I'm like detained in this room. And so eventually I found out that I was listed with the highest level of criminals, like with murderers and like pedophiles, and like I was on. That's why she's like,
She's like, what does this guy do?
Yeah. What did he do? Tried to run a festival. Tried to run a music festival. And so I got put in this room and basically just like given two options on the spot before whoever was coming arrived, and it was like, you can get back on the plane, or you can sit here and risk the repercussions or whatever. And so I got back in my same seat on the same plane and just flew back to New Zealand. So it was about 24 hours of just...
No way.
Yeah, came back and then never dealt with it again.
The fact that you're on a list with people of that caliber is insane.
Life's greatest achievement.
That is honestly, that is mind-blowing.
It was wild.
That is such a story. What were the repercussions for the festival itself? Like, you obviously got on the jet boat off, but what happened that day on the island? Accounts of your friends or punters, everything was shut down?
Yeah. So everything was shut down. Everyone knew what was going on. I remember being, it's your reputation as well. And I remember just linking up with the other promoter and saying like, let's just be honest. So we sent a message from the back end of the ticketing, and we said, hey, this is like full corruption. We've completely been swindled here. Like, we've tried everything. Don't stress. Like, we're gonna sort refunds. Like, just give us a little bit of time to work through this. That that's what we did. And on the island, so this is why I'm saying we're not fire, because at least if you're stuck in Gili, there's still sick venues, beautiful restaurants, like amazing, go swimming. Like we didn't get too much pushback from, like, obviously the artists couldn't play and our, there wasn't a festival, but people were still stuck there for 5 days on a beautiful island and had a good time. So it was, the main thing for me, man, was I remember just, I can't even remember what I had to sell to get those refunds. Like it was cooked. I just came back to New Zealand. So imagine Audiology's built up everything to that point, lost it all on a show, got back to New Zealand and basically just started club shows again.
That is crazy.
Started from scratch.
And to think, basically, what, a year or two later is that when you launched Bay Dreams?
Yeah, Bay Dreams launched. So this is how petty I am. So that happened around September. We then launched the first ever Bay Dream straight after that. And then I remember 2 months later, so I'm in a group chat with all the people from around the table. And he had sent a message, another one I could pull up for you. He had sent a message in Indonesian to this group chat after everything had happened. And I'm like, obviously so gutted. And it translated to like, I told you to never mess with us, blah, 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 in Indonesian. Like that was the English translation.
No way.
Yeah, something to that effect. And then so we just left it because I didn't know how to, like, didn't want to retaliate and stuff.
Of course, yeah.
But I remember just smashing Bay Dreams, and then I just put that in the chat. And just to show them that, like, I had
You are legitimate, yeah.
Not even, no, just like, screw you. Like, okay, I didn't get to run my 700-person festival, but like I've just sold out another one. And just to show them that, like, this guy thinks I can't mess with them, but the reality is, like, yes, everything's all good. Yeah, as long as I'm alive, it's all good. But yeah, we're the irony was got back and literally started, like, that's where everything took off and everything flourished and started big festivals.
Yeah, for sure.
So that big. When I tell that story, or the way I think of it, is just like crazy levels of resilience because
massively.
After that I had to get through COVID. After that I had to get through breaking up with a business partner and all the reputational stuff that does, and like, and so like, but nothing will ever be quite as gnarly. No, I can.
You really hit the rock bottom of what could go wrong event-wise. Being deported, having to escape an island on a jet boat, the entire festival not going ahead. You're like, okay, if I can get through that and come out on the other side and still run very successful shows and have a career, I can get through anything.
Yeah, exactly.
That is absolute madness. Wow, Mitch, that was a crazy story. I cannot believe that happened to you. That is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
I think if anyone from Netflix or any documentary show, Warner Brothers, is listening, that deserves its own doco series because that is mad.
I'd love for that to be. We'll tie it in with the bigger picture one day. Eh?
Wow, that is crazy, man. That is madness. Nothing I think will ever top that again in your career story-wise.
Well, I hope not.
That is insane.
Yeah, I hope not. Hopefully it tops it for the right reasons. Eh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. One day, imagine that your redemption, knowing you'd go back and you'd be like, right, let's actually do a proper festival there.
There's been many conversations about it. There's been many. I'm not gonna break down how we were gonna do it, but that, I think the most clutch move of all time would be to run a successful event there and then post it back in that group chat.
Oh my goodness, you've been dreaming about it ever since, haven't you?
There's a lot of things that have been in my mind, but imagine that, and they just have no idea that I was a part of it.
That is madness, eh? And that is such a thing too about, and we talked about this in the last episode, around the risk of what you do. The risk can be hugely, like, it's massive at times. The loss can be massive, but also the success can be so big as well.
Exactly.
And that is just such a crazy scale that it's been on.
Exactly. But that's why I don't jump at overseas opportunity as I did. Like I said, you've seen the ADE shows we do, but that's in it's in an environment that I understand. You know, we will do some partnership stuff overseas, but I feel like it really made audiology Kiwi. Like, because back then my sights were set on overseas.
Of course,
Now it's very much like, how can we just like nurture our New Zealand market and make sure that we're competing with overseas events.
Yes.
You know, and that's why a lot of these ideas and the creative stuff we're doing, I feel like we're getting attention from overseas.
Absolutely.
And people are taking the shows that we create here and doing them overseas. So as long as we're having that impact, I'm stoked.
So true. And it's such a good point too. I think a lot of companies, no matter what industry they're in, they always try to look overseas and think, how can we take that market or move the business over there? But really, owning your own backyard can be such a successful part of running a business. You don't have to go overseas to have that big international scale.
Yeah.
I think that's what we do really well here at Audiology. We keep our sights on what we know,
Yeah.
our own patch of land, and do
yeah.
the best job that we possibly can here.
You can thank Indonesia for that.
Well, it is mind-blowing. Well, thank you for sharing it. I'm so glad that I've heard the proper
Pleasure.
story now, and I genuinely just cannot believe it.
There we go.
That is mind-blowing. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode.
Is that a full episode?
I'm just
that
going to leave it at that. Do you want to say anything else?
No.
That's
No.
mind-blowing.
Unless you want to hear the India
that.
story. We can
What's
tell
the
that
end?
next
What's
time.
the end?
I said unless you want to hear the India story.
Oh, the
we
India's...
can tell-
No, there's
we
not
can tell-
another...
Oh, there's heaps of these. Not quite as bad as that, but no, I didn't try to run a festival there, but I'm just talking about life or death experiences.
Oh my goodness, we'll save that for next time. I think one life or death experience is enough on this episode. That is madness. Thank you so much, Mitch, for sharing. And thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you in 2 weeks' time on the We Do Cool Shit podcast. See ya. That's crazy, man.